Well, hello everybody. My name's Leslie and I'm Livy's mum, and she's asked me to come on here and have a chat about zero waste and how that impacts people of my age. I'm 61, with changing our mindset, because I think for most of us at my age, possibly a bit younger, a bit older, we've grown up in a world where there has been a surplus of everything. We've grown up in a world where obsolescence was built into pretty much every single thing that you buy, and I think the time has probably come, it's been accelerated by the pandemic that's happening at the moment, but the time has probably come where I believe that a lot of people need to change their mindsets. And absolutely, I mean, it's going to be a struggle. It's been a struggle for me, that's for sure. I've got some notes down here so that I can actually remember what I'm supposed to be talking about. So if you see me looking down, that's why I'm looking down. A little bit of background about myself. I was lucky enough to be brought up in a family where we never wanted for anything. I went to private schools and I had a very nice lifestyle. I then got married and continued with a very nice lifestyle until 20 years later, I ended up getting divorced, which is a whole other story which I won't bore you with now. During that divorce process, I was having to readjust my mindset to get used to the idea that I could no longer afford the things that I wanted. Not the things that I needed, but the things that I wanted. I was having to learn how to do without, how to live a simpler lifestyle, a more minimalist lifestyle. So after my divorce, I came up here to Skye with my two youngest children, two cats and a dog, and we all piled into my car and we drove up here. We've lived on Skye now for a good 10 years. And during that time, I'm not gonna lie, financially it's been hard, it has been tough, and my mindset has had to continue to be readjusted to the fact that not only was I getting used to living in a completely new place, but I was also learning to live on even less than I had before. And although it was incredibly hard, and it still is in some circumstances, but although it was incredibly hard, it has actually been worth its weight in gold. Because what I've learned from that experience is that even at my age, even being what I think is known as baby boomers, even coming from a background of plenty and not wanting for anything, you can learn to adjust and you can actually start to really enjoy it. Because you're learning new skills all the time. The skills that our parents had, the skills that our grandparents had, I'm having to relearn. I'm having to relearn the fact that actually I don't need a television. I have no television. I haven't had a television for years. Just that one simple thing has freed up a lot of time for me. I no longer feel under pressure to keep up with certain programs that, quite frankly, would probably rot your brain anyway. In terms of what I'm having to relearn that my parents and grandparents knew, because you have to remember that my parents would have been young in the Second World War. They would have been born at the tail end probably of the First World War, and as a consequence they knew about make, do and mend. They knew about making a little go a very long way. I wasn't brought up like that. Obviously that doesn't apply to everybody of my age. Some of you will have been used to that from the get-go. Others will be like me and will not have been used to it. So from my perspective, I wasn't brought up like that. And I'm learning that you don't need to buy new clothes every season. Actually, your clothes, if they're looked after, can last you a very long time. They can be mended. This is something else that really sort of digs into the zero waste movement, is mend your clothes. If you have a hole or a patch of wear on them, mend them. Learn to darn. There are plenty of YouTube videos out there that will teach you. that will teach you knitting, that will teach you sewing, that will teach you cooking. And I do think that once we take that power back into our own hands, as it were, once we become responsible for feeding ourselves, for clothing ourselves, we have a lot more power, the power of the wallet. We have a lot more power to say, actually, no, I'm not going to buy that. I'm going to put my money in that instead. Growing our own food is one of the things that we have just started to do. I've always gardened after a fashion, and I decided I had long wanted to learn how to grow vegetables, because I did like the idea of popping out onto the back garden, cutting a lettuce, cutting a tomato, and bringing in vegetables to use that evening for that evening's dinner. But I'd never actually got around to it. Like a lot of other people, life gets in the way, you know, and you tend to do the thing that you have to do rather than the thing that you should be doing. And we've decided that this year, again, probably partly because of the pandemic, that actually this year will be the year that we're actually going to get started on this. So my very talented daughter has made 2 small raised beds out of pallets that we got for free. And in those pallets will be going plants that we've grown from seed ourselves, things like peas and beans. We've got a greenhouse that we're going to be putting up for tomatoes and courgettes and cucumbers. We won't be self-sufficient in food. I mean, this is merely going to be a supplement to the food that we can already buy. But this is our first year, and you have to start somewhere. And so we'll be starting, initially it'll be supplemental, and then after that, after next year, hopefully it will be move more and more and more towards being self-sufficient. I've also bought an apple tree and some raspberry canes and a blackcurrant bush, all of which have gone in the ground. Learning to knit, learning to sew, learning to make your own food from scratch. These are all really important life skills that again taps into the zero waste movement, I think, because if you're actually creating the things that you're using, I think psychologically you're less likely to waste those things, if that makes sense. You will actually look at them, you'll be proud of what you've made, and you'll be looking to look after them properly instead of it being a throwaway society. You know, why not make it into a make do amend society? But for me, I've decided that it's going to be, rather than something that I have had to do over the years because I've not had any money, it's going to be something that I want to do now. As I said before, it's about relearning skills and mindsets that the previous generations had, that they were brought up with and that they took as being normal. And to be perfectly honest with you, we all may have to accept that the way life is probably going to change. I'm not saying it will, but I think when things get to back to normal, there will be a quite significant difference in the way many of us live. And I think we may well have to accept that things will be very different, especially for those of us who are just ordinary normal people, just living an ordinary normal life. We will have to make changes, and that's why I think this pandemic is actually an amazing opportunity for people to discover what their new normal is. And I know that's a phrase that's been bandied around a lot, the new normal. But it may well be that. It may well be that society and our ways of doing things change to such an extent that those of us who hadn't thought about making our own clothes, who hadn't thought about not buying into the consumerist society, will have to think about that, and we'll have to think about ways of dealing with that. So one of the phrases that really impacted me quite a lot, and I can't remember where I first heard it from, it certainly isn't something I've come up with, but one of the phrases that has impacted me quite a lot is you do what you can with what you've got where you are, and that's good enough. That will always be good enough. You might not be able to do or to buy what your next door neighbour can. Doesn't matter. You do what you can with what you've got where you are. So if you've enjoyed this video and you've found it useful, and if you've got any questions or any comments, leave them in the box below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and don't forget to press the ring bell button just in case you want to be notified of when we upload a new video. Alright, take care, stay safe, and we'll see you soon. Bye.